Merry Christmas, everybody!
Merry Xmas, Leela.
Merry Xmas.
Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas! Oh, Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas,
Hey, howdy, hey, and Merry Christmas, people of the internet. Wolfman407 here. You might be thinking, why is my sofa not been all that Christmassy in all these vlogs I've been doing all month? Well, that's because I have a bit of confession to make. I have been filming these in October. Yeah, I know, bit ahead of myself, but yeah. Okay, so as you might recall from my Halloween video, I did a 25 item video to sort of coincide with how I do things on my blog, where I do a top 25 list every 31st of October. And seeing as it's December, I kind of do something similar on Christmas Day, where because there is a carol called The 12 Days of Christmas, you might have heard of it, I tend to do a top 12 list. And once again, I'm going to merge the two ideas together. So instead of a top 12, it's just going to be 12 randomly selected things, and this year it's going to be 12 randomly selected family films that people watch around this time of the year. It's not just exclusively Christmas films or whatever. These are just the sort of films that people watch when they are around each other's homes, having those awkward family reunions and conversations and everything. Yeah. So let's get to it. I should point out that these films I've picked are ones that me and my folks often watch around this time of the year. Might be the same with you, might not be, but anyway, let's get cracking. I've got my tablet here with my list, so let's go. So as you might expect, the first one that I've picked is the Lego Movie. Phil Lord and Chris Miller made this. You might have heard of it. It was released back in 2014 in an attempt to sort of capitalise on the success that the Lego company is. They've been through a lot of hardships for many, many years, and then this film comes along, and now they're one of the biggest companies in the world, and still are today. It's a nice film. It can come across as a sort of glorified advert for the company, but it actually has a heartwarming message to it as well. Plus, you can't deny that the animation is a mix of stop motion and CGI, which is something which films that Lord and Miller would use in some of their later projects. But yeah, it's a great film. Definitely one to watch if you're a Lego fan. And the sequels and spin-offs are pretty good as well. Not as good, I'd say, but pretty good too. Staple for British films now is Paddington. Two of these films have been made, with a third one on the way. And anybody who knows British icons well knows that Paddington is a big British icon, known for being just a lovable teddy bear with a raincoat and a hat, not this hat, but a different hat, and enjoys his marmalade sandwiches. And the people behind the Harry Potter films decided to make a film about him, and it ended up being one of the very few films that achieved 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and even the sequel managed to do the same. Who knows what will happen with the third? Hopefully it'll be as good, if not better, but we'll see. But they are definitely the sort of film that are just too perfect to have flaws. They might have some flaws here and there, but you just can't help but love the whole film, just how sweet it is, the atmosphere, the acting, the various cameos that are in it. It's a wonderful little film. Of course, anybody who knows family films well knows that Disney is always the big one in the family. And rather than pick on any specific Disney film, I've just kind of decided anything Disney, because anything Disney is always going to be a family film, even though they might have some dark, mature themes that are tackled, and some unrealistic things. But anything Disney is usually a good watch. Probably not the stuff they've done recently. You already know my opinions about it if you've been subscribed to me for a while now. So I won't go into detail about that. But yeah, definitely watch something Disney at this time of year, because there's usually pretty much every single TV channel will have something Disney on. Or if you don't watch live TV or don't have access to live TV, then Disney Plus as well. That's always a good one to go to. They've got lots of animated films, not just from their own in-house studio, but also Pixar. Plus, they're now also the home of Star Wars, Marvel, everything else that Lucasfilm do, almost everything that Fox do, and lots of other things as well. I know my friend Clank Soka will want me to mention this, so I'll mention it as well. One of Clank Soka's and also one of my favourite films as well is Where the Wild Things Are. This is a live action film all about a boy that goes on an adventure and finds these strange, wacky creatures that are basically the sort of creatures you'd find in a children's book. And funny enough, this was based on a children's book. And it's just a very nice, adventurous, very sweet film with a bit of drama in there and all sorts of other stuff. It's probably not a traditional family film, if there's even such a thing as traditional family film, but it's definitely one people will watch just because of much like how Paddington is, it's based on a children's book. So yeah, there's a bit of familiarity there. Of course, anything Harry Potter, there's always going to be a Harry Potter thing at Christmas. Yeah, I know the franchise hasn't seen its good days recently, but one can't deny that anytime Harry Potter does Christmas, it's usually done pretty well. Whether it's just feeling festive or just going all out with it, the scenes in the films that have Christmas in it are always good to see, and it's sort of like a nice sort of calm before the storm moment in the films, because usually each film goes through the whole term that happens at Hogwarts, and it's sort of at Christmas where there's a calm before the storm moment in the films and even the books themselves. But they're definitely worth a watch, the Harry Potter films, whether it's just because you love watching the films themselves, or just fancy the actors and actresses in it, the young cast, because everybody knows they all turn pretty hot and gorgeous later on. So yeah, enough about that. Yeah, a staple in Christmas films is Home Alone, specifically Home Alone 1 and Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. So Kevin McAllister tries to go on a family holiday, but ends up being forgotten about or gets mixed up in some other shenanigans. Anyway, he is home alone and must defend his house from burglars while his family try to get home to make sure that he's safe and all that. The first two films are always going to be the best ones. The rest you can just forget about; they don't exist. Yeah, they're a staple for family films at Christmas for sure. Those ones. Moving into anime territory, I've got my tablet down here. That's why I'm reading them. Moving into anime territory, there's a lot of Studio Ghibli films out there that people could see at Christmas, but the one that would sort of have a kind of sort of family feel to it would be Spirited Away, a film about a young girl who goes with her parents to this weird world where and her parents started eating stuff, and then this little girl discovers that she's entered a fantasy world, and to save her parents from whatever it is that happens to them, she must do some certain things with the weird and wacky creatures that are in this fantasy world. Of course, it being an anime, it's gonna get more weird and wacky as time goes on. But that's the joy of anime stuff. There's never like a simple, straightforward anime. It's always going to be weird and wacky, and I love weird and wacky. It's just fantastic. Another staple for Christmas is Aardman. Aardman, for those of you who don't know, are a stop motion company based in Bristol here in the UK. You may not have heard the name, but you will have definitely heard of some of the film stuff they've done, such as Wallace and Gromit, and a lot of different Shaun the Sheep and a lot of different other stuff as well. Their very first feature film was Chicken Run, and that actually has had a sequel released this year. At the time of doing this video, it's not been released yet, but I know it is coming out. It will have come out by the time you've seen this video. I hope it's good, because I love the first one. And if Aardman do know any good things, it's always their shorts and their feature films. They always try and do really well with them. Some of their films aren't as good as others, but generally on a whole, no one can definitely say that there's an absolute worst Aardman thing. But usually when it comes to Aardman, they usually have something released around Christmas anyway. Like last year they had something released on Netflix, like they've done this year as well. They've also done a Christmas film called Arthur Christmas, and they've done all sorts of other things as well. Working with various studios, including DreamWorks, Studio Canal, Sony, and even the BBC. In fact, they've actually got a good relation with the BBC, so much so that a lot of the competitions that Blue Peter set up often are to do with Aardman. So that's good. A favourite in my family, The Princess Bride. A pretty simple hero tries to save the princess kind of story, but it probably sounds very generic, but it's actually pretty good because it's very cheesy, corny. It's got some clever one-liners, and people just love the film for how cheesy and how corny it is, and filled with one-liners as well. And you can't deny that when you've seen it once, you can't get enough of it. It's as good as that. That's all I'll say on that. Hello, his name is Inigo Montoya. You'll kill his father, prepare to die. Inconceivable, and the rest of them. I seem to have put Paddington in twice, but it's fine. We'll carry on. Despicable Me. So this is Illumination's very first film, and also its biggest franchise, home to their mascots, the Minions. Of course, it's about a villain who turns good, and you know the rest of the story there. Steve Carell plays the villain, Gru, Pointy Nose, who initially starts out as a villain but decides that the love of his daughters take priority, and decides to go against his villainous ways and take them in as his adoptive father. And that's the end of that. It spawned several sequels, a couple of spin-offs, and the Minions are, to this day, still Illumination's mascots. Illumination, of course, is just one of the few animation companies that Universal own. So there's that one. Another Christmas staple is Elf. So those of you who don't know this stars Will Ferrell, who is basically a big ham in a lot of films he's in. But in this one, he plays an elf that actually isn't technically an elf. He's actually more of a human being that happened to have been picked up by Santa because he was left abandoned. And so he was taken in by the elves. They make him turn into an elf, and then decides to find his long lost father. And then he goes to New York. Stuff happens. All sorts of shenanigans occur, and eventually, in the end, he finds the family he's after, and also finds love as well. So nice.
A few moments later.
So we've just done 11 films, and as I've put in Paddington twice, I now need to think of another film. And one I have thought of is actually anything DreamWorks. So DreamWorks have done a lot of animated films, most of which have been tailored for families. And unlike Disney, who tend to go for a more safe-ish approach, DreamWorks tend to take a bit more risks by deciding to make their films family friendly, but with some adult jokes thrown in, and some adult and mature content thrown in as well. In fact, some people thought that their take on some of the Bible stories to do with Moses and Joseph would have not done too well, but it turns out they actually did pretty well. Of course, they have a knack for making films based on various children's stories, with their best ones being Shrek, How to Train Your Dragon. I think Kung Fu Panda's based on one, but I'm not sure. They've also done things like Captain Underpants, Boss Baby, and other stuff as well. Most of their stuff is good. There's only a handful of films I'd say that are not as good. But if we're talking about films that were released recently, definitely check out Puss in Boots: Last Wish and The Bad Guys, which follows the same animation style as the Spider-Verse films, something of which is adapted into other animated projects as well. But definitely a good animation style to use. And that's your list. So that's Well, it's kind of technically cheating because there are some solo films in that list, but there's also a lot more other films that I may have mentioned as well. So it's technically not 12, but it's kind of sort of 12. So yeah, that is your list. I hope you're all having a happy, safe, merry and cheerful Christmas. And if you've been subscribed to me for a while, thank you so much. It's been a blast making these videos for you all. There'll be a couple more vlogs coming out this year. One will be my Christmas haul, just to show you what I received as Christmas presents, and then also a sort of review of the year vlog, which I'll do on New Year's Eve. Just to sort of say what I feel about the year has been, news, everything, and all that. And then there's going to be a few more video game related videos as well. So there'll still be a couple more long playthrough videos, and also at least one more random one shot as well. So if you look forward to those. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. See you in the next one. Peace to you all. Go easy on the food. If you've got a good joke to tell in your crackers, tell it. If you don't, just shuck it away. And have a happy and safe Christmas. Toodles.